Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we've got a spare gauge cluster. We're going to be making a custom gauge panel for the S10. We're going to be using these Equus performance gauges. They're all electric. I didn't want to spend all the money for the Odometers because eventually I hope to go to the Terminator, as I've told you in the past video, so we didn't spend a whole lot on the gauges. And then for the speedometer, I went with this Odometer Racing. Got it from Amazon. It's a GPS speedometer, and it works off of an antenna. So you don't have to have a cable or anything like that for the dash, going out of the dash to the transmission. So I'm going to take this thing apart. We're going to make a template, cut these gauges out, get it painted, and put it all together and show you how I made my gauge cluster for my truck. So let's get this thing apart and get started. Okay, now we've got the screws out. Let's take it apart. Let's take this off. Probably not going to be using that. Let's take... Am I missing a screw? No. Okay. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out and make a template out of metal, and we'll put our gauges in here. So I've got a piece of sheet metal. Let's go ahead and get this cut out with a Dremel, and we will get started on making the template for this. Okay guys, basically what we did, I'm going to smooth this up, but we roughed this out, and I left this thick here because I didn't want to compromise the strength where the bolt holes are, and I made a little miscut right here. I'm going to fix that, but I'm going to smooth all this out. And we also went inside of the back piece, took all the gauges out you saw in the time lapse, cut all the plastic pieces out, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to, I got a piece of thin sheet metal, I'm going to trace out the pattern for the bezel here, and then we will fit it to this piece and lay out all of our gauges. I'm just going to put the speedometer here, and then I'm going to have oil, water, volts, and fuel, or vice versa, however I want to lay them out. But basically the speedometer will be here, and then I'll have the oil and water and temp gauges and other things here. I think I'm going to run a tachometer on my steering wheel column because I like the looks of that. So I'm going to trace this out and get it cut out, and we'll get the gauges laid out and keep going. Okay, we've got the basic shape and design cut out of the metal. So now what I'm going to do is I've got all these holes marked. I'm going to punch these and drill them, and I've got the inside marked. We're going to lay out our speedometer, then our temp and pressure gauges on each side. I think I may do them at an angle. Not sure yet, but we'll get those laid out. And we'll drill this hole for the gauges. We'll test fit them. We're going to paint this. I think I'm going to go with flat black, and then we'll show you the final assembly. Also, something that I didn't show you guys, I'm also going to install these indicator lights. I don't have another green. I've got to order another pack of 5 to get the one green I need, but I'm going to use the 2 greens will go up here for turn indicators. Then I have a blue, which will be our high beam. And then I'm going to hook up a red, actually not a red, let's use the yellow for the check engine light. So we'll get all those drilled and wired in. I'm not going to be able to install this at this time, but I'll make another installation video when we get ready to wire the truck up, because I'm going to wire these into the old harness, and all these gauges are going to go out through the bulkhead connector in the firewall, I think, at this time. And if you do it right, when you hook these gauges up, you can put the lights that are inside of these gauges, you can connect them through the lighting circuit in your car, or in the S10 is what I'm going to do. And when you move your dimmer switch up and down, it will dim the bulbs inside of these gauges, or it did in the last truck I built. We'll see how these work out. So let's get these holes punched, mark out our layout for our gauges, and then we'll paint it and show you the final assembly with all the indicator lights and gauges and everything in it, and all painted and ready to go back in the truck. Okay guys, no science here. I located my center speedometer first, and I stacked the gauges. I used my hole saw to kind of eyeball it. I measured, took some measurements, but I put the gauges straight up and down over the top of each other. But I think I kind of like angling them a little bit. I think it'll give it kind of a cooler look. So no guesswork. I just eyeballed where I wanted them to go on this side and measured them and made them the same on this side. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to drill these holes on an angle, and we'll put these gauges in here. If I don't like it, I've got some more of this sheet metal. I can make some more. So this is going to be the hard hole to drill right here because I don't have a hole saw that big. These are 2-inch gauges, and this is a 2-inch hole saw. So these, I can knock these out pretty easy. But this one here, I'm going to probably have to start a hole with a 2-inch hole saw and then take my snips and cut it out, or maybe even a jigsaw with a metal blade. So let's see what'll work the best, and I'll cut you back on and we'll get these holes cut out. Okay guys, we got it all cut out. I'm going to deburr these edges. We'll test fit our gauges. And the next thing will be, we'll sand it down. This is, I think it's galvanized. So I'm going to sand it down, deburr all the edges. We'll test fit the gauges, give a good coat of primer, paint it, come back when the paint's dry, and we will assemble it. I'm going to go ahead and poke my holes in here, or drill my holes rather, for the LED lights. We'll go ahead and mark our turn signal indicators here and here with the bright high beams here, and I'm going to put my check engine light right here. So I'll get that done off camera, clean this up, we'll put our first coat of paint on it, and then we will we're going to deburr all these edges. If you can see that hole saw, be very careful guys when you use that hole saw on thin gauge metal. It will make a razor blade. And when you start sanding, if you're not careful, when you do this right here, that will be in your fingers. So I'm going to take a file and file this down and then sand it real good with some sandpaper. So be really careful. Use your safety glasses when you're cutting this with the jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, because it puts off fine, very fine particles that could get in your eye. So let's get this sanded down, get the lights, turn signal indicators with the high beams and the check engine light put in it, and we'll start painting it. Okay guys, here it is. If you'll notice, I told you guys to be careful and I cut my fingers. So be really careful when you're cutting this thin sheet metal. I had to move, I'm going to move my high beam indicator down here, because by the time the bezel of this is inserted, it's going to offset this. If I put it up here, it's going to be too high. So I just put it here, and then I'm going to put my check engine light here. So I'm going to go ahead and test fit all my gauges. Then we're going to sand this and paint it. Come back tomorrow and put the final assembly together and let you see what it looks like. So let's get the gauges put in and see what they look like. It's amazing how much better things start to look when you start putting the finishing touches on it. I don't know what order I'm going to put these in. I may lay them out the same as the S10 original gauges are laid out in the truck. Just because that's the original pattern, I guess. It makes sense to me. But I'll make another video when we get ready to put these in the truck, when we get the LS in there, we're going to wire all these to the LS. I'll make another video showing what colors I tied into in the factory harness to make the turn indicators work, or blinkers if you're from Alabama. It is fixing to come a storm. You guys may hear it raining on my rooftop here. Put the oil right there for now. I think I'm gonna really like my idea. This really wasn't my idea. I've seen guys build these on the internet. Instead of putting the gauges straight up and down from each other, they stagger them off to the side. I really like that idea, so. Let's see what it looks like before paint. Then we'll get some paint on this thing and do a little after paint. Final assembly. And I won't put the turn indicators and check engine light and high beam light in here just yet. I'll just get the gauges in here and let you guys see what it looks like with the gauges. I tried to find a speedometer that matched these gauges, and this particular brand, Equus, they didn't have an electric speedometer, and I went with electric gauges over mechanical. I don't like the idea of running a oil line inside the cab. I like the electric cinders and things like that, so that's why I went with electric, if you're wondering. All right, guys, that's what it's going to look like. And I think I'm going to go with flat black paint so that the glare doesn't glare in the sun. So I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to paint this, and we'll come back and we'll put everything in it and get a final look at it. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we're going to spray the flat black on here. We've got 3 coats of primer. I used 1 coat of self-etching primer and then 2 coats of filling sand to try to knock out some of the, you can see some tooling marks where the hole saw kind of scooted off to the edge, but I'm not too worried about it. I can make another one, but hopefully this won't be in there that long. So let's get the flat black on it, get it put together, and show you the finished product. Okay guys, it is almost done. I went ahead and assembled the gauges inside the panel that I made. Spare you guys the time on doing that. I put my turn indicators, my blinkers, my check engine light, my bright lights, and again, the speedometer. I'm really anxious to test the speedometer because you just hook power and ground, and then you have a GPS sensor. It's a GPS speedometer, so there's no cable. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm gonna probably put one of these in my boat. It won't be 120 miles an hour, probably be a 30 or 50, something along that lines, but I'll put one of those in my boat and I don't have to run that water tube up to my speedometer. But I'm gonna wire all the grounds together, and I will wire, of course these will tie in, the blinkers will tie in, or turn indicators will tie into the factory harness in the truck, but the lights for those gauges, I'll tie all the grounds together, but I'll tie all the power wires into the factory power wires so that when you hook it to the dimmer switch in the S10, you've got the roller dimmer switch. it will dim or brighten these lights when you do whatever you want to do with them. So let's stick it in the housing. I did clearance this housing. You can see I had to make some cutouts, and I notched out all of the internal bracing. And I'm going to put all of this down in here as best I can to show you how it fits and what it looks like. All of my screw holes line up. And then this will set right on top like so. And that's what it's going to look like, guys. I really like it. So I think it turned out great. The only thing is that I did different than some folks do is I put the gauges at an angle. I didn't come up with this. I seen this on another YouTuber or maybe on Facebook, but the gauges are on an angle. I think that gives it a unique look rather than stacking them one on top of the other. And I may not leave them in this orientation. I'm thinking that I put the oil and water, these are my two most critical gauges to watch, on my right-hand side when I'm driving, and then the fuel and the volts on the other side, but I may swap them up, who knows. So that is going to end out the video. I'll show you something else for next week's video. What we're going to be looking at, I have got a box here, and I'll take you over here and show you. This box, I don't usually do unboxing videos, but I am going to unbox this. As you guys saw in the last video, we got the LS engine running, and you can see I unpinned the harness. I went to lt1swap.com, used the schematics, unpinned the harness, sent the PCM off to Brendan at lt1swap.com. He reflashed or took the vats off and set it up for my injectors and some of the questions that he asked. But you can see all of this. I was going to loom all this back up, but what I decided to do is I went online on Facebook. There was two gentlemen, and I won't call one of them's name, but Ben Bailey is the other one that's on Facebook advertising harnesses. And this actual box came from him. So we're going to unbox this, lay it out, look at the quality, and see if it is up to snuff on what we think an LS harness should be. So if you want to see that video, hit that subscribe button right now so you won't miss it. Hit the bell notification, hit the like button if you like this content. Thanks for coming back, and those of you that are stopping in first time, thanks for stopping in DT Performance, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.